This video was intended to inform and educate the public.
Officers in one community now on the other side of the law. 3 of them indicted by a federal grand jury. What the FBI is accusing them of is our top story.
Hello everybody, and welcome once again to another video here on the Junkyard News. And in this video news story, we bring you a troubling story out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania, where 3 police officers were previously accused of violating the civil rights of individuals that they were supposedly sworn to protect and serve. Among them is Lieutenant David Donkochik, a 53-year-old veteran of the Mount Carmel Police Department, who did plead guilty this Thursday to conspiring to use excessive force against arrestees when that force was unjustified. It's a story that raises serious questions, not only about abuse of power, but about why some officers seem to get a disturbing thrill from violence, and why they go to great length to not only cover it up, but to lie on reports to try to justify the punishment that they decided to dish out to people that didn't deserve it. The victims of these 3 officers say they were brutalized by those entrusted with supposedly being the ones supposed to be upholding the law. You see, on a quiet afternoon in Mount Carmel, a call came into dispatch about a minor disturbance at a local convenience store. Now, witnesses say the situation was under control when officers arrived, but what happened next would spark a federal investigation. According to court documents, Lieutenant David Donkochik and 2 other officers initiated what prosecutors called an unprovoked attack on the suspect. Donkochik reportedly struck a man multiple times with his baton even after the suspect was in handcuffs, as well as lying face down on the ground. But it didn't stop there. After the assault, Donkochik and his fellow officers filed official reports claiming the suspect had been actively resisting and posing a threat to officer safety. Surveillance footage from a nearby security camera that was unseen by the officers told a different story. And when you have video evidence that directly contradicts the officers' reports, it's not just a case of excessive force, it's a cover-up. And that's a federal crime. Now, Donkochik's guilty plea marks a rare instance of accountability in cases like these, but it's what lies beneath the surface that's even more troubling. To understand why some officers do engage in this kind of behavior, a psychologist who has studied patterns of excessive force within law enforcement may state the obvious, that there's a psychological phenomenon at play here. For some officers, the authority and control that comes with a badge creates a sense of power. In high-stress situations, that need for control can manifest as aggression, and over time, officers who develop a taste for that power may start to seek it out. They begin to crave the rush that comes with dominating a suspect. And it's not just about aggression. It's about the culture within some departments that allows this behavior to go unchecked over and over, time and time again. Now, ask any officer off the record, and they would probably explain it as, it's the thin blue line. If you speak out against another cop, you're done. So when you see something like someone roughing up a suspect, doctoring a report, you're supposed to look the other way. And if you don't, you'll find yourself out of a job, or maybe even worse. And federal prosecutors say that's exactly what happened in Mount Carmel. Donkochik and his fellow officers allegedly coordinated their false reports to protect themselves and avoid repercussions, going so far as to make sure that body camera footage and dash cam footage never caught the abuses that the civilian population had to put up with for years. And you know, I think there's a psychological reward system at work here. Because when cops get away with it once, it reinforces the behavior, the adrenaline rush, and the sense of dominance. It becomes addictive. And when the department shields them from accountability, it reinforces the belief that they're untouchable. That sense of invincibility, combined with the protective nature of police unions and internal affair divisions, creates a dangerous cycle. And the victims of that cycle are often left with little to no recourse. Stories come out time and time again. One might say, I was just walking home from a bar. I wasn't causing any trouble. Next thing I know, I'm face down on a sidewalk and this guy is kicking me in the ribs, telling me to stop resisting, but I wasn't resisting. How could I? My hands were cuffed. And of course, when this person files a report and a complaint, nothing happens. Cops would say they look into it. But of course, the complainant never hears back. It's like they're just waiting for you to forget about the complaint you filed and move on. But it wasn't until federal investigators stepped in and these officers were starting to be scrutinized on the federal level and looked into their past when the Justice Department decided there is something going on here. Now, Donkochik's guilty plea suggests that the government may have a larger case in the works. Legal experts say more charges could be coming for the other officers involved as well. When one officer pleads guilty to a conspiracy charge, that usually means there's more to the story. And Donkochik isn't the only one responsible. He's just the first to fall. And while accountability may finally be coming in some sort in Mount Carmel, the deeper question does remain: how do you change a culture that rewards silence and protects aggression? Some would say better training, psychological screenings, and most importantly, real consequences. Until officers know they'll face real accountability for excessive force cases, the behavior will continue and nothing will change. Now, Lieutenant David Donkochik is expected to be sentenced in the coming months. He does face, as well as his other cohorts, 10 years in federal prison. The Mount Carmel Police Department, of course, declines to comment for any story regarding this event. Now, Donkochik was one of 3 officers, as I stated, indicted on charges on conspiracy to deprive rights under color of law, the others being officers Jonathan McHugh and Kyle Schauer, both age 36. They are accused of violating the civil rights of those they arrested from 2018 to 2021. Where they allegedly kicked, punched, choked, and used excessive force in 22 different arrests. The officers were also accused of taking steps to make sure that footage of the arrests were not captured by police cameras of any type, or if some disturbing footage was captured, they made sure and took steps that it was not preserved. And to cover up the abuses, they falsely reported that arrestees acted in a manner requiring violence, filing aggravated assault charges on suspects to cover up their own crimes. Now again, all 3 of these officers are facing a maximum penalty under federal law for this offense of 10 years imprisonment, as well as a term of supervised release following their imprisonment, as well as a fine. A sentence following a finding of guilt is imposed by the judge after consideration of the applicable federal sentencing statutes and the federal sentencing guidelines. But what I want to know in the comments, and I want you to write, is how many years do you think these officers are going to actually serve in prison? For years, they tortured people in their community, getting a cheap thrill and an adrenaline rush off the pain and suffering of others. Do you even think 10 years is enough? Shouldn't there be a special enhancement penalty when officers violate their sacred oath? What do you think would be a fair sentencing for all 3 of these officers? Do you think they're going to get 1 year, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years? Comment what you think below. Thank you again for watching this video here on the Junkyard News. Be careful, people. I keep saying it. You never know when the next contact you have with a law enforcement officer brings you to being highlighted in our next video. Be safe out there.
Videos uploaded by the Junkyard News are helped in part by viewers just like you. You can show your support for this channel by clicking the thumbs up, sharing our videos, or hitting that all-important support button on our channel page. Don't want to miss a video or a story? Make sure to check us out and like us on Facebook at The Junkyard News.